Yeah, Caitlin's going. Nice. Yeah, BA sounds amazing. It's what is anyone's favorite thing about Buenos Aires? This is just going to turn into a Buenos Aires like fan club. So, look forward to the rest of the hour. It's just talking about how much we love Argentina. Yeah, the food. Nice. There's like both really good, like, yeah, okay, nightlife. Yeah. The good food. There's amazing wine too, right? And mate. Nice. Okay, perfect. All right, yeah. So we'll hope to continue as we're talking about things to like just intersperse how much we love BA into everything that we talk about. So I'll try to mention it as we're doing updates. We'll talk about wanting Argentinian Malbecs. Amazing. Well, welcome everyone who's in the Zoom and also tuning in on YouTube to the November, if I have the month right, Filecoin Green Meetup. Filecoin Green is a project with a dual mandate. So we aim to decarbonize Filecoin and do that in a way that is publicly verifiable, and to see how we can use decentralized data stored on Filecoin and distributed through IPFS to accelerate sustainability across the broader economy. And so today, so I'm Alan. I started Filecoin Green. Today we are going to hear a couple different things. So first, most of the team just went to COP27 in Egypt, which was an amazing conference. You probably saw things about it in the news. This is where the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, the UNFCCC, convenes people throughout the world and representatives of countries who are signatories to the Framework Convention on Climate Change in order to discuss how we're going to decarbonize the world and try to make progress toward that. So we were there for a big chunk of it, and Caitlin's going to tell you more about what we did there and different events that we were a part of, and more just on sort of general updates from the team. Then Orion is going to talk about the Refi Grants program, which closed recently, and amazing teams that are working on building things in the space through that program. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the upgrades that are happening to Filecoin itself. There's a ton going on in the broader ecosystem that people tuning in the space may or may not be aware of some of the details of. So I'm going to go through two of the major upgrades and sort of major developments in the Filecoin network, which both have to do with compute. So Filecoin is really good at storing data now. So one of the major factors on the long-term roadmap for Filecoin, and the medium and short-term roadmap even, is to build better tools for actually doing things with that data. So one of those is called the Filecoin virtual machine. Another is called Project Baklio, which computes over large data sets. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what those programs are and how they relate to some of the things that we're doing and how we can use them in order to accelerate all of our efforts in sustainability. And so, but first, Caitlin, please take it away with updates.
Yeah, hello everyone. I want to apologize. I do not have a slideshow or anything. You just get to hear me talk for the next few minutes about some updates. But yeah, we just recently were in Egypt for COP in Sharm el Sheikh, and it was a really awesome experience getting to go. It was my first time, Alan and Ori's first time. Mark's been there a couple times before, and it was really just a great experience. So I wanted to give some updates about that and some of the different things we were doing there. I guess to start off on just kind of general news and updates, we have a couple of recently announced collaborations with other projects in the Web3 space that we've been working with. So one of them is we've been working with Hedera on this thing called the Guardian, which I love to share links. And so I'm going to drop links in the chat. And if you are not already subscribe to our newsletter, you totally should, because I'll be sharing those in the newsletter as well. But the Guardian is something we're working on with Hedera. It's a policy engine. It's linking together tokenized digital environmental assets, so things like carbon offsets, REC certificates, all of those things. So linking those to the reporting data that is what created them. And part of this collaboration on this project is Hedera is using IPFS, Filecoin, and specifically CO2 storage for the storage of those provenance chains. So super cool project that we've been working on, very exciting. Hedera is doing some really great stuff in this kind of intersection of climate and Web3 tech. So working closely with them. We also participated in some events in Egypt with them, their hub culture thing that they had going on. We had some panels that we gave, some talks that we gave there. We're also a big sponsor of their climate pavilion. I guess overall COP kind of updates or takeaways is there was a really strong blockchain presence there. So Ethereum was there, Hedera, Thallo, Gainforest, Open Earth, plenty of other organizations, projects. Filecoin Green obviously was there. So it was really awesome to see such a strong blockchain presence there, and not just at side events, but actually in the blue zone of COP, which is like the main hub where all of the negotiations happen, where a lot of the talks happen. And we were there. Filecoin Green had some talks that we gave at the Innovation Hub, which was really cool. Ethereum also had their consensus had a big announcement around the Ethereum climate platform, which I'll talk about more in a minute, but really just cool to see how strong of a presence that Web3 tech had at COP. And I hope it's something that continues into future COPs and also just general sustainability events and spaces. I think it's really cool that we were able to be there, highlight our work, and kind of show that this intersection of climate and blockchain exists and the important things that we're doing in it. So with that, another big announcement was this project that we are working on with Consensus. Bunch of people, again, more links I'm sharing in the chat. A bunch of Web3 tech companies are involved in this Ethereum climate platform. And what this is, coalition of a bunch of Web3 companies, again, including Filecoin Green, working alongside also some traditional organizations, so Microsoft, Gold Standard, and the purpose of this platform is to kind of redress and counteract the carbon footprint from Ethereum before they switch to proof of stake. And so investing in a lot of science-based climate projects to address those past emissions that Ethereum had when they were on a proof of work system. So really cool, really exciting. Again, this is an announcement that happened at COP. There was a really great panel that just highlighted all the amazing people in this space that are going to be working on this. And it's really, again, kind of going alongside with the UN's Global Innovation Hub. That message of innovation and solutions really aligns with that, and super excited to see what that continues to evolve into. And obviously for our team to continue to be involved in that. And then I guess just kind of general takeaways from COP is there was a big focus on carbon markets. So on carbon credits, on what that looks like with Article 6 of the Paris Climate Accord. Not a ton of movement on that. It's something that's unfortunately going to be continuing to be had, these conversations, but there was a really strong emphasis from people in these negotiations, in these talks, about transparency and ensuring that countries aren't double counting carbon credits. And I think a lot of those things are on the forefront of Web3 blockchain companies that are working at this intersection of like the voluntary carbon markets and Web3. That transparency aspect is what a lot of blockchain enables. So it'll be really cool to see how that evolves over time. Other than that, I think one of the major takeaways was obviously a lot of movement on the loss and damages front, which loss and damages is basically a fund is being established to provide payouts to developing countries that suffer loss and damages from climate change related events. A lot of the details need to be worked out of that still, but it's a huge win for climate justice. Really exciting to see movement there. With that being said, there were not a lot of strong commitments being made by countries on phasing down or phasing out of fossil fuels. I think out of like 196 countries, only 29 came to Egypt with revised action plans, which is a little frustrating, but it is pretty complicated, implementing those commitments on such a large scale. And for me, this really resonates with the work that we're doing at Filecoin Green. Even though we are just a small blip in the greater scheme of things, the fact that us, as well as other people in this space, are taking a really strong effort towards measuring our environmental impacts and taking the efforts to reduce them. I think it's going to be really important going forward that we have even these small players being able to do these things and having these things on the forefront of our mind, hopefully making progress on them in a way that, if we can address this issue for Filecoin as a whole, for blockchain, hopefully being able to do that in a way that we can expand it to beyond the blockchain Web3 space. So for me, even though it's not ideal that there hasn't been much progress made on that emissions front, I think it's really cool to be in a space where where that is something that's on the forefront of a lot of our minds, or at least in Filecoin and Filecoin Green. That's something that we think really, really like a lot about. It's the whole purpose of our work. So I think those are my overall takeaways from COP. I don't know if the team wants to add anything else. I am going to add in here the recordings from the talk we did at COP. So we had Alan, excuse me, Alan talking about some of our work here, as well as a really awesome panel with some great people in the space. So yeah, those are my updates. If you have any specific questions about COP or want to see more of what we did, definitely subscribe to the newsletter, because I'll be sharing a bunch of links in there as well. But yeah, that's it for me.
Yeah, thank you for that update. There was so much going on at COP, and it was a wild week and a half. I just want to sort of plug one of the links that Caitlin posted in the chat, and I think it's going to be in the newsletter when it comes out if you're subscribed to that. One of the events that we organized is called Using Web3 to Build the Global Carbon Ledger. And I think, one of the reasons that so many blockchain groups were around, and one of the reasons this resonated strongly with decision makers, is that what we do, right, managing data in a way that's transparent, is, so data is the lifeblood of decision making and the raw material for accountability, which is a great quote from the UN website that Caitlin actually discovered and turned me on to a bit ago. But so in order to successfully decarbonize, we need accurate and timely data, right? So that's what guides all of the decision making here. And a big part of that is that a big part of the data that we need in order to guide and drive decarbonization is Scope 3 emissions data. So in most sectors, the majority of the emissions associated with that sector come from their supply chain, not from direct emissions, so burning fuel or using electricity, right? And so people need accurate and timely data in order to focus their decarbonization efforts on changing their supply chain or changing who their suppliers are in order to reduce their emissions. But currently, because this sort of data is only, these carbon accounting exercises are only done and released every year. That means that when a company in the supply chain does this emissions accounting exercise, that data is going to be months or maybe a year old before their supplier can actually use it, right? And then company B takes that information as an input, and then they take another year before they process that data, figure out what their emissions intensities are of all of their products, and publish that data. So that means that by the time the information from company A goes through company B and gets to company C, it's 2 years old, right? And so what that means is that today's systems guarantee that emissions data is going to grow old before it can be used, which is a huge problem, and is, I think, one of the many things that we can work to try to address, right? Is how can we build systems, and we're in the process of building systems in this community that are going to allow that information to flow through supply chains in minutes, not in months. So can we actually build the information systems that we need in order to make the data that we have, make our understanding of facts on the ground accurate and timely, and allow people to focus their decarbonization efforts where they're going to be the most effective. So yeah, thank you again, Caitlin, for that overview. Anyone have any questions about anything Caitlin mentioned? Feel free to drop something in the chat or shout out if you have any questions. Pause for like just another minute.
I'm going to drop one last link in the chat box. I hope everybody doesn't mind. If you're not signed up for our newsletter, I'm going to shamelessly shill it because I'm the one who makes it. If you're not signed up for our newsletter already, please sign up. It's a great way to see updates, get all the links of what we're doing, what we've been working on. And this will be a pretty chunky newsletter because of all the stuff we were doing in Egypt for COP, which is super exciting. So thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much. And if people don't have any questions, we're going to move on and hear from Ori about the Refi Grants round.
Hi, everyone. I am going to share my screen so we can also see about some of, yes. So for those who don't know, we decided to launch our first grants round in June this year, and we decided to focus on refi specifically. And refi is looking at the current economic system and models that we have and taking a holistic look at each step of the environmental supply chain and being able to replace what we currently have. And so we thought that it was a great idea to focus on this for our grants round because also storing data for refi project enables transparent, verifiable, resistant, and persistent information when it comes to data sets used to steward natural systems. And some of the refi projects we were interested in seeing were anything from reforestation, carbon credits, carbon negative solutions, biodiversity monitoring and reporting, and much more. And we were able to open it up for between 5,000 to 200,000, and we had a 1 million grants round that we were willing to give. And so the Refi grants round closed around September, and we're still working on some of the details and being able to publish some of the information that we have out, but I will also highlight some of the grantees that we have awarded. So this first round, we were actually able to award 27 projects, and some of them actually came from our hackathon that we had at SBS Paris earlier this year during June. And our grant sizes range from $1,000, which is very micro grant level, trying to scope out and see sort of like projects happening in the Global South, to 300,000 for larger scale projects and protocols that had wanted to sort of expand their projects, and we were able to award over $2.7 million to the Refi Grant Round. So we were very excited to help make a huge impact on the refi space. And there are lots of different sort of categories that people were able to submit their projects in, but some of them that we tend to see submitted a lot happen to be DMRV, so D-Meter and Shamba Network, which is in Kenya, are focusing on digital monitoring, reporting, and verifiable reporting for both the Global North and Global South to be able to have these records that are verifiable and transparent. There were e-waste tokens, such as Impactor Finance in Brazil, that tokenizes e-waste. And then we also had nature-based credits, such as Renewable, which funds climate solutions via natural capital-backed tokens. And then impact certificates, such as Fangorn. And then there were other projects such as Gainforest, who is building a decentralized transparent hub, and they're leveraging the power of Filecoin's decentralized storage. And then Regen Network, which focuses on the Shambas, which is sort of like a women's collective of collecting money for their communities and then putting that data on Falcon, because typically when they're looking for investments or loans, there's not any data for these communities, so they're able to leverage Falcon's network and use that. And then also a SaaS platform to analyze a product's climate impact, which will focus on blockchain as sort of that like SaaS element. And a full recap of all our grantees will soon come once everybody has signed their contracts. And what we're also able to do, which was very exciting, is that we were actually able to also provide some funding for storage providers in the Filecoin network to go green. So we had HUD 8 in Canada, which has a data storage that is 100% powered on renewable energy that we were able to help fund. Lucky Strike facility in North Carolina, which wants to focus on solar energy and being able to bring other Web3 companies into their data center to help utilize the solar energy and European green hosting, which is focused in France, which focuses on solar energy as well. And France is the biggest electricity producer in the EU. So we are really also able to expand and help bring down the energy consumption of storage providers around the world. And one of the most exciting things about this grants round is that we were able to focus on different refi projects around the world. So hopefully more information about these grantees will come out soon. And then we are also excited to launch our grants round next year, and we'll be able to provide more information about those shortly. And if anybody has any questions or wants any links to some of the grants that I briefly talked about, please let me know.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Ori. Yeah, the outputs from this program are so exciting. Like Ori said, if anyone has any questions, please drop them in the chat or feel free to unmute and shout them out. Yeah, I think like over the past year and a half, the amount that the refi movement has grown has just been huge and like so inspiring. And it's been great to try to do what we can to help that movement continue to grow, because I think this mission, right, of seeing what projects we can start in order to better align the economy with the natural world is it's really powerful. Question from Caitlin.
That's like picking your favorite child. You're not allowed to say. So they're all my favorite.
Nice. I also want to point out that some of these SP initiatives are really exciting, and I think are gonna have a big impact over over the next several quarters. Two of these SP initiatives are aimed at allowing other storage providers to co-locate inside of a data center that's certified green. So what that means is that when a storage provider or anyone who's running a sort of medium-sized IT operation wants to do that economically, frequently they don't start their own data center. They rent space in someone else's data center called a co-location data center. And so two of these, both HUD 8 and Twin Quasar, are aimed at building spaces that are known to be sustainable, so known to be running on renewable energy and can prove it, and allowing other storage providers who want to come in and be a tenant of that data center to move in and then benefit from those sustainability criteria. So one of the things, one of the issues if you prioritize sustainability and then you're in a co-location data center is that frequently those colos don't provide you with all the information that you need to know in order to understand what your actual, say, energy intensity is. But so both of these projects are going to do a really good job at allowing SPs to co-locate, but then benefit from all of this monitoring, reporting, and verification that they're doing for the entire data center, which is super exciting. All right. I don't know if there are any other questions. Thank you, Ori. And so let's move on to the last sort of agenda item before we're gonna quit the live stream and just kind of talk and see what's on people's minds. So network upgrades and new things that are happening in the network and how this is interacting with renewable energy certificates. So this is something that we're doing a lot of work on and a lot of thinking about, and a place where we really want people in the community to bring your own ideas and see what you're interested in building and how you're interested in contributing to this. So firstly, I'm gonna give a overview of two of these major developments that are happening in the Filecoin network. I know that some people on this call might be super dialed in to the Filecoin ecosystem and everything that's happening. Other people may be, hazily aware or not have heard of some of these. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about two of the major things that are going on and why they're interesting. So firstly, the Filecoin virtual machine has been in the works for a long time. Right now, the Filecoin network is really good at storing files or storing data and allowing you to not only store your data on the network, but have proof that that data is being stored, replicas of that data are being stored over time, and then be able to access that data to use it, right? And so what the Filecoin virtual machine is going to allow is allow you to program smart contracts that run natively on Filecoin. So, currently you can't just program smart contracts or actors on the Filecoin network to do just any arbitrary thing that you want them to do. But the FVM is going to be EVM compatible and allow you to do that. So that's super, super exciting, right? That's going to enable this huge range of functionality that the network doesn't have right now. If you're interested in the roadmap, if you're interested in understanding what the next steps are for the FVM, you can go to fvm.filecoin.io. There's a ton of information on what the spec is, how to get involved in the early builders program, and what's already happened and what's going to happen. There was a network upgrade about a month ago called Filecoin V16, which upgraded Filecoin so that Filecoin actors are already running on a version of the FVM. So what an actor is an entity on the network that can do something, right? So like miners have actors that allow them to post messages to the network and change the state of the network, but they can only do the things that miners can do, right? So storage providers. So they can store data, they can publish proofs, they can receive payments, that sort of thing, but they can't just be programmed to do sort of any arbitrary action that you might be interested in allowing them to do, right? So Falcon virtual machine, major roadmap or major milestones along this roadmap have already been hit. The Falcon network is already running on a version of the FVM, but more functionality is coming pretty soon. And so why is that interesting? What are a few examples of the things that are going to be enabled by full EVM compatible functionality? One of the things that's going to be enabled is layer 2 networks. So layer 2 network like Polygon is a layer 2 that runs on Ethereum, right? These networks can have different properties and you potentially do certain types of operations faster while benefiting from the security of the underlying layer 1 network, right? So Filecoin itself, we know that it works really well. It's been up for 2 years or so. So it has all these security properties that are really, really positive, right? There's 4,000 or 5,000 active nodes in it. If you wanted to start some special purpose network, you wouldn't want to rebuild all of that. You wouldn't want to rebuild all of the layer 1 security properties. You wouldn't want to have to recruit, thousands of nodes to secure your network. It would be easier to build it on top of Filecoin. So examples of this might be a layer 2 network that focuses on content delivery, making sure data is where it needs to be in order to be delivered quickly and efficiently to people who need it, right? And so you can imagine like all sorts of different networks with different types of functionality that you could build on top of Filecoin layer 1, but you really need to be able to program arbitrary smart contracts and actors in order to enable that. And again, if you want more information on any of these ideas on things that people can build, or details on the FVM itself, you can go to fvm.filecoin.io. So layer 2 networks are a major sort of unlock that's going to happen because of the FVM. Another example is the data DAOs. So right now, this really is has the potential to deliver on a lot of the promise of Web3, right? So data DAOs today, or data today, tends to be locked in these siloed Web2 companies, right? That they manage your data how they want to, without much regard for how you would like your data to be managed, right? There's a lot of value in data sets, including user data. and including data sets that come from all sorts of different sources, right? But we don't have great tools outside of Web3 for allowing that data to be managed by the community or individual that generated it, and allowing revenue from that data to flow back to that community, right? So that's the concept of data DAOs, right? So you could form your own DAO, your own decentralized autonomous organization that programmatically manages data generated by that DAO, where that data is stored on Filecoin, that DAO runs on Filecoin, and because it's on the FVM, it has the ability to move that data around, make storage deals with that data, manage that data while also having all of the governance structure that you need in order to form a DAO, receive payments, manage treasury, all of that, right? So that's another example of, the FVM is going to unlock this ability for people to manage data and build communities that manage data in these sort of fundamentally new ways in which the underlying programmatic management of the data is integrated with the governance of a community, right? So that's the concept of a data DAO. There's a ton of other, like I said, really interesting use cases that people are thinking about. If you want ideas, if you want to be inspired, if you want to hear what people are thinking about, you can go to fvm.filecoin.io. So then the question, right, is how does this interact with the stuff that we're doing in Falcon Green? One way that it interacts is through tokenized renewable energy certificates. So if you're on this call, you have probably heard of RECs before, but I'll do a quick overview just as a refresher, if you haven't heard of them. Renewable energy certificates are how we allow individual Filecoin storage providers in order to prove that they're using renewable energy. So this is a mechanism that was developed decades ago. The basic problem is that you have, say, you have a renewable energy producer, so a solar farm or a wind farm. You want to buy energy from them, but you don't want to build your own power grid. You don't want to build your own wires connecting their facility to your facility, because that would be nuts. When you already have a power grid, like, why would you build these extra wires, like physically connecting your facilities? It makes much more sense to lean on the power grid, which is a public good, and just use the power grid as your connection to these producers. But you would like to be able to directly support them by buying renewable energy from them and prove that you're doing that. So the solution to this is that the solar farm or the wind farm puts energy into the power grid as it normally does. You use energy from the power grid as you normally do, but for every megawatt hour of electricity put into the grid, they mint this thing called a REC, a renewable energy certificate. Another term for this is an energy attribute certificate, because it stamps a bit of energy with the attributes. So when was it produced? Who produced it? Where was it produced? What technology, like solar or wind or hydro, was used to produce it? Then you can then use energy from the grid and purchase these renewable energy certificates and be directly supporting that renewable energy producer. So that's what a REC is. So there are these instruments then that need to be minted and traded and managed. And so right now what we do is we take renewable energy certificates. They have IPLD metadata associated with them. So that's available on IPFS and stored on Filecoin through Estuary. We tokenize that on the Energy Web chain, which is great. They have a lot of tooling specifically built for tokenizing RECs and other renewable energy certificates. And we then reference that if we want a storage provider to be able to make claims about renewable energy. So what the FVM is going to allow us to do is to bridge Energy Web into Filecoin and be able to take those RECs that are currently in Energy Web, tokenize a version of them on the Filecoin virtual machine that points back to Energy Web, and then we can natively make these claims about renewable energy use on the Filecoin chain. So that's going to be super useful. That is also going to allow us to take renewable energy that's managed in other systems, other chains, also bridge that, right? So if we have arbitrary smart contracts and FVM, we can build all of these bridges to other chains that then allow us to take renewable energy from different sources and manage it on the FVM, or at least make it visible on the FVM, so that we can prove sort of natively what the energy use of a given storage provider is. So that's going to be super, super useful. Another thing that this is going to unlock is allow other issuers, so say renewable energy credit brokers or renewable energy credit producers. So if you have, say, a solar farm that is producing RECs, and you register those in the local renewable energy certificate registry, allow you to just mint those directly on FVM and trade those tokens, right? And so we think this is going to be a super, super powerful unlock for allowing people to work with renewable energy on Filecoin in all sorts of new ways, and allow people to natively trade renewable energy assets such as REX and track them on the FVM. So we're super, super excited about that. Another thing that this allows is when you actually want to do more complicated computations on data that is associated with those REX. So on the left-hand side, we have renewable energy certificates with IPLD metadata. Say we have not just the PDF certificate or the record that this energy was produced over a broad time frame, which is what you get with most RECs, but say we have really granular energy production statistics, right? Excuse me. Say we have the data showing that this REC represents renewable energy produced with this given production profile, right? So those blue sort of triangles are production from a particular solar farm day after day, right? So we know, say, for every 15-minute period from information from the inverter, when that renewable energy was produced. Maybe that data is stored on Filecoin and we want to do something interesting with that data. What might we want to do? Well, say on the right, we have a Filecoin storage provider or some other energy, someone else who's using renewable energy, and say we have their energy use profile in their building, right? So that's what that graph is meant to represent. Maybe we have both a power bill and we have detailed information showing, in this 15-minute period or in this hour, here's the amount of energy used by this consumer. Say we then want to do computation that uses both of that data, right? Say the consumer buys this renewable energy certificate and we want to hold that production information and that consumption information up together and look at, say, what was the carbon intensity of the grid when the solar energy was produced? What was the carbon intensity of the grid when the energy was actually used by that individual? And match not just on a megawatt hour basis or on an amount of electricity that was produced and consumed basis, but match the actual amount of emissions avoided by the solar and caused by scope 2 emissions from the power consumer and match those, right? So say we want to do that, but we want that data, we want to do that using decentralized compute, right? One of the things that the Filecoin virtual machine would be able to do is not just tokenize or represent those data sets, but make sure that they're stored in the same data center. So then that data center has access to all of that underlying information and can do those computations efficiently and compare those two data sets and then publish its information. And the FVM could just manage, where is this data stored and make sure that that data, that computation is able to be handled efficiently, right? So this is the sort of really sophisticated management of underlying data that is going to be enabled by the FVM, and some thoughts on how we're going to be able to leverage that in order to make, like I was talking about earlier, try to push this sort of information through supply chains in minutes, not in months, right? How can we optimize how this data flows through supply chains and how it's accounted for in order to improve our situational awareness on the ground of what our environmental impacts are and how we can reduce them. So another major project that has started a bit ago and is just gaining speed and is doing all sorts of really, really exciting things is Project Baklio. This is so Baklio is Portuguese for COD, because when you say compute over data, the abbreviation for that is COD, and the naming of the project is extremely clever. The Falcon virtual machine allows you to run smart contracts and program arbitrary actors, or it's going to, right, on the Filecoin network. But if you need to do a large compute job, you are not going to do that on chain, right? So the Falcon virtual machine is a great solution for running computations in which you need to move data around or make payments or do on-chain governance in the Filecoin ecosystem. But it is not a great solution if you need to like run an AI model over like many gigabytes of data or something. For those large compute jobs that are going to be handled off-chain, you need some other solution. And if you want to do this in a fully Web3 native way, you need some distributed solution for doing those compute jobs. So Baklio is building compute over data and bringing that to the Falcon network. So the idea is that some storage provider has your data. That data is content addressed, right? So it has a CID associated with it. You then have some code that you want to run given that data as an input. It runs that code, then the output is also stored on Filecoin with its own CID, right? So, and the way that you handle ensuring that computers run effectively is that you do this with some degree of redundancy so that different storage providers are able to check each other's work and prove that they got the right answer. And so this is a good solution because storage providers have frequently excess CPU and GPU loads, or they have excess hardware that's not used all the time. And so they have the data, they have the compute infrastructure to do things with that data. So Baklio is putting 2 and 2 together and allowing you to actually run these compute jobs on data that's stored on Filecoin. So if you want more information about this, you can go to baklio.org, BACALHAU.org. They have a ton of documentation, a ton of tools, a ton of ways to get involved, and working systems that you can, if you're interested, you can install Baklio and start playing around with it. It's pretty cool. So what are ways that might affect some of the things that we do? So clearly, there's a lot of different types of compute jobs that are going to be necessary in order to build the global climate ledger on Web3. I talked about a compute job at the end of the FVM discussion a minute ago, right? Talking about how maybe if you have data corresponding to solar production and you have data corresponding to electricity consumption, maybe you want to actually see how those data match. Maybe you need to do a compute job that uses both of those as inputs. That job itself, you might manage where the data is stored using the FVM, but that job itself would be done using a compute over data network like Project Baklio. So another way that this touches the renewable energy procurement system that we've been working on is that the process for procurement of RECs itself is pretty complicated. Right, so this process involves working with brokers that sell renewable energy certificates. It involves getting an order from them. That order is then assigned to individual miner IDs based on their needs and their geographies. They so you might have many different line items in this order where each say one line item is renewable energy produced from this given solar farm in the UK during Q2 of 2021, right? So that might be a line item. You then take that and break it up between all of these different individual storage providers, and then you tokenize you tokenize the renewable energy corresponding to that purchase, that line item, and then you fractionalize that between these different SPs, right? And so because this involves working with brokers, and then those brokers fulfill these orders at different times, and then you need input on what the energy use of individual SPs are. This is a complicated process, right? And so what we could do on Baklio, currently we manage this publicly on GitHub. What we do with Baklio is take all of the information that we get from brokers, put that into this distributed compute over data network, and then allow that to give us these inventories and the data that we need in order to tokenize these renewable energy certificates outputted from the compute over data network, right? So take what's currently being done in this pretty centralized way and decentralize that using COD, using compute over data. Another thing that this is enabling is rec requests from storage providers. So this is something that is relatively new. So I want to tell people about it. If you are an SP and you need renewable energy certificates, please go to tinyurl.com/sp-rec and just let us know. Let us know where your miner IDs are, approximately how much renewable energy they're using, and what timeframes you're interested in. We do not have a total inventory to cover the entire network. But if you want free recs, this is the place to get them. Right. And so one of the benefits of this distributed architecture is taking data from these different sources, right, and putting that into this like public and distributed and completely transparent system for assigning recs, and then allowing us to get these outputs showing which renewable energy certificates need to be tokenized in different ways. And so, these are partially to let people know what we are thinking and what we're working on currently in order to take different upgrades and different projects that are happening to the network right now that are really, really exciting. Partially to let people know what we're working on in terms of how we're going to leverage them in our work. It's also to let people know, if you're interested in getting involved in these projects, or if you have other ideas for how things like the FVM or Baklio or other things like hypercerts, these sort of major initiatives that are happening in the Falcon ecosystem right now. If you have ideas for how they could touch sustainability, we'd be really interested in talking to you about them. So if people have any questions or thoughts about sort of specifically relating to what I was talking about, or anything you heard Caitlin or Ori talk about earlier, feel free to drop them in the chat or unmute. Pretty soon we will stop the live stream and just hang out on Zoom for a bit and see kind of where people are, how people are feeling, what people are thinking about. But if you have any questions about, say, FVM or Baklio or renewable energy certificates or COP27 at Sharm el-Sheikh, or Refi Grants, or storage providers that are in colo data centers, or time of use recs, or time of use energy consumption, or anything like that, I'd be really happy to answer your questions. All the things. Yeah, exactly. You have questions about all or any of the things, or Argentina, right? I forgot to pepper in our discussion how much we like Buenos Aires, because of the food, the nightlife, and the wine, which is a good set of reasons to like a place. We can also talk about Buenos Aires. Looks like maybe there aren't questions related to any of those specific things. So thank you for tuning in. We're gonna stop the